This is the legend of the Shattered Covenant. Part 1. The Gathering Storm. In the years following the Great Convergence, when the world had begun to settle into its new, chaotic rhythm, the leaders of Valsidia's great nations recognized a terrible truth. The portals would never cease. The enemy would continue to pour forth in endless waves unless something drastic was done. It was the High Elves of Lindrel who first proposed a solution. Their greatest mages, led by Archmage Thelendril the Luminous, had discovered ancient texts within the Crystal Archives, fragments of knowledge from a time before the Convergence, when the barriers between worlds were stable and controlled. These texts spoke of a ritual, the Covenant of Sealing, which could permanently close the largest and most dangerous portals. But the ritual required something unprecedented, the combined power of all the major races of Valsidia working in perfect harmony. Thelendril sent emissaries across the land, to Granshire, where the humans had built their Magitech empire, to Cathar Gur, where the ancient lizard men maintained their eternal vigil, to the Greenwood, where the wood elves guarded their sacred groves, even to the mountain holds of the dwarves, who had carved their kingdoms deep into stone and iron. The response was mixed. The humans of Granshire, pragmatic and ambitious, saw opportunity. If they could control such a ritual, they could dictate the terms of peace across Valsidia. The Emperor himself, a cunning strategist, agreed to send representatives, but with conditions. The lizardmen of Cathar Gur consulted the stars and the ancient prophecies of their Slan mage priests. The cosmic signs were unclear, shrouded in the chaotic energies of the Convergence. Yet the Slan sensed a greater purpose at work and reluctantly agreed to participate, sending their most disciplined Saurus warriors and wisest skink priests. The wood elves were the most hesitant. The druids of Galada, speaking through the sentient trees of the Greenwood, warned that such powerful magic could upset the natural balance. But when reports came of tyrannid swarms encroaching upon the forest's borders, devouring everything in their path, the Circle of Thorns relented. They would send their finest archers and druids, but they would watch the others carefully. The dwarves, ever suspicious of magic they did not forge themselves, grumbled and debated in their great halls. It was only when a dwarf hold in the northern mountains fell to a horde of Khorne berserkers that they agreed to join, sending their runesmiths and ironbreakers to lend their strength. And so representatives from across Valsidia began their journey to the chosen site, the Nexus of Echoes, a place where the energies of the Convergence were strongest, located in the neutral territory between Oakhaven and the Azure Jungle. Part 2. The Nexus of Echoes. The Nexus of Echoes was a place of haunting beauty and terrible power. Here the very air shimmered with residual energies from the Great Convergence, creating mirages of worlds that once were and realities that might have been. Crystalline formations jutted from the earth like frozen lightning, humming with arcane resonance. The ground itself pulsed with a rhythmic glow, as if the land had a heartbeat of its own. When the delegations arrived, tensions were immediate. The humans of Granshire came in force, their Magitech knights gleaming in enchanted power armor, their arcane artillery positioned strategically around the perimeter. They brought with them scholars, engineers, and battle mages, all eager to study and potentially control the ritual's power. The lizardmen arrived in disciplined formation, their Saurus warriors moving with mechanical precision, their scales gleaming like polished jade and obsidian. The skink priests carried ancient tablets inscribed with celestial calculations, while a single Slan mage priest, ancient beyond measure, was borne upon a palanquin of living stone. His eyes, vast and unblinking, seemed to perceive dimensions beyond mortal comprehension. The wood elves emerged from the surrounding forests like ghosts, their presence barely disturbing the natural world. Druids wreathed in living vines walked alongside war dancers, whose movements were poetry and death intertwined. They eyed the humans' machinery with barely concealed disgust, viewing it as an affront to the natural order. The dwarves marched in with characteristic stubbornness, their runesmiths carrying hammers that glowed with ancient power, their ironbreakers forming an impenetrable wall of gromeral armor. They immediately began surveying the site with a craftsman's eye, muttering about shoddy magical construction and no proper foundation. Archmage Thelendril stood at the center of the nexus, his silver robes billowing in winds that existed only in the magical realm. He raised his staff, and silence fell across the assembly. "We stand at the precipice of history," he proclaimed, his voice carrying across the nexus with supernatural clarity. "Before us lies the opportunity to stem the tide of chaos that threatens to drown our world. But this ritual requires more than power. It requires unity, trust, and sacrifice." A dwarf runa lord, Grimnar Ironforge, stepped forward, his beard braided with runes of power. "Unity. Trust. We've fought wars over less than what you're asking, elf. How do we know this ritual won't simply open more portals, or worse, give one race dominion over the others?" A human representative, Lady Seraphine of Granshire, clad in gleaming Magitech armor, interjected. "The Runa Lord speaks wisdom. We require guarantees, safeguards. The Emperor will not commit Granshire's resources without assurances." The Slan mage priest spoke then, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to emanate from the earth itself. "The stars do not lie. The great plan is disrupted. Balance must be restored. We shall participate." A wood elf druid, Ilara Moonwhisper, her eyes reflecting the green depths of ancient forests, added her voice. "The greenwood suffers. The unnatural portals poison the land, corrupt the beasts, and threaten the sacred groves. We will lend our strength, but know this. If this ritual harms the natural world, the greenwood will remember." Thelendril nodded solemnly. "Your concerns are valid, all of you. That is why the ritual is designed with multiple focal points, each controlled by a different race. No single faction can dominate the magic. We must work as one, or we shall fail as many." And so, reluctantly, suspiciously, but united by necessity, the races of Valsidia began their preparations for the Covenant of Sealing.